discussion? Roll call. And Nichols eye excluding any COA wages.
Something's gonna go on.
Mute. Is your microphone on? No, it's
Now, there are not any minutes in the package. Do people have an opportunity to review the minutes from April 4th?
I was just looking at them.
I have motion to approve as written.
Do I have a second?
Wait a second.
Any discussion? Are you okay?
I haven't read them, so I'll just.
Do you want to hold them then?
We can, because we held the last ones. We actually should have.
We held the executive session one.
Oh, that was the executive?
Yeah,
Okay, that's right. So we'll hold those for a while. Is it all right if we hold them, Skip?
I'm sorry, by me.
I don't
All
care.
right, so we'll hold them until next meeting. All righty. Right on to the fire chief.
Oh, wow, that's great.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Told you it was going to
We
be
want to
quick.
get you out of here early.
I guess so. All right. I'm here to give you the fire department quarterly update. Last time I saw you with an update was in January. So here we are, finishing up our first quarter of the calendar year. The fire department has seen a 15% increase in call volume in the first 3 months over this time last year. Where this creates a problem is it puts a huge strain on the operating budget. It's because, for example, ambulance calls, as ambulance calls increase, the number of calls we go to, the more supplies we use on individuals, the more medications we use. So those are, costs that, are driven by call volume, and that we're trying to be cognizant of that. But the problem we're seeing is medications that we're getting from the hospital. The pricing of medications has gone up almost 100% in some cases. Certain medications that used to be $20 are now $200 a dose. So we're seeing massive increase on the medication and supply sides, whether it's due to supply chain issues or just everything COVID related driving that. Obviously, this has put a strain on the fire and ambulance budgets. I will be coming forward in May for a municipal reserve transfer from my own existing line items out of wages to cover some expenses. So just be prepared to see that. We do have extra money in wages because certain full-time staff chose to take comp time for holiday pay instead of taking the holiday as pay. So that's freed up some money that we can put back towards expenses to cover the deficit in certain line items. The type of calls that we're seeing is clearly what we're seeing is a direct reflection of lack of medical service or delayed care that residents have received over the last 2 years. Unfortunately, it's, mental health and chronic diseases has gone unchecked. The biggest population that we're seeing these issues are the 12 to 24-year-olds and the 50-plus age bracket. People were not comfortable going and seeking out treatment during the last 2 years, and now chronic diseases or diseases they didn't know they had have gone unchecked, and we're seeing some really catastrophic illnesses in town that could have been prevented if they got early care. We've been dealing with it the best we can, trying to get people the resources they need, working with the Council on Aging to get elder services involved in certain cases due to certain family members aren't reaching out to their parents and helping out as they should, or just checking in on them. And the elderly population is always good of answering the phone and tell their kids everything's fine, don't bother, everything's great, but in reality things aren't great. So we just need to be able to be more reactive or proactive reaching these people as well. Staffing of the public safety building has been interesting over the last year. The full-time staff on the fire department side has either tested positive once or in some cases more than once for COVID-19. This is a direct relation to the exposure risk that they have in the back of an ambulance treating patients. As you know, December through late February, the COVID cases in town were well over 100 cases active at any given time. As we transport patients to the hospital, obviously we do full precautions, but you gotta remember, we have these patients in a confined space for greater than 30 minutes to the hospital. So our staff has been put at high risk and has contracted the disease in some cases several times. We're trying to provide the best care we can, not only physically but emotionally, that we support our staff and keep them going, because this last 2 years has taken a burden on them. It's worn them down, and we're seeing some burnout in some cases, that people are just mentally just checking out. It's been overwhelming. So that's pretty much what's going on the fire department side. Back on the emergency management side, a little things that have been going on. Obviously, on the FEMA side, as you know, CARES funding ended last year. CARES started out at a 25%, 75% reimbursement through FEMA. So CARES funding would cover 25%, 25%, and FEMA would cover the 75%. Halfway through it, it all transitioned to, all of a sudden, FEMA was going to take over 100% of reimbursement. So that kind of screwed up how we reported everything. So we had to go back and re-report everything that we started with to clean everything up. I've been working with the Office of Administration and Finance to close this out. The care side of it has all been reported and reconciled. That's done. The FEMA reimbursement side of it is coming in. It's in final review now. We should be seeing those funds come in very shortly. Dan was allowed to allow that line item to roll into a deficit carried into this year from previous years, and it did not impact our free cash. But this will bring the money in this year, close that account out, and not have any issues. On the FEMA clinic side, FEMA, obviously, the Department of Public Health asked us to run the FEMA clinic for vaccine. That was 100% funded through FEMA and reimbursable to the town. Similar thing, we fronted the money, and now the money's coming back in. So we've finished that reporting process. As you know, we closed the vaccine clinic in March after 14 months of providing service to the community in the surrounding areas. We tapped out almost 100,000 patients that came through this building over the last 14 months, and it was a great thing to do. Our plan is not to start back up for the fourth dose or the second booster per se. It is available at the Rutland Pharmacy, so if anyone 50 and over or has an underlying health condition is eligible to just go to the Rutland Pharmacy to receive that. I know the Board of Health is planning on doing a flu clinic, the normal annual flu clinic in November. At that time frame, the flu clinic will be to Rutland residents only, and we will have the availability of the COVID vaccine again for your winter booster, because I'm sure that's going to come available to all age groups this fall. One other thing on the state side, on MEMA, back on February 2nd, I emailed the entire board the emergency management plan for the town. It was a pretty lengthy document. I'm sure it was very bored to read. I'm just asking that the board put it on the next agenda to vote to have it, the last page signed, so I can submit that. And that's pretty much all I have.
So we won't do it Thursday. You mean
No,
regular
next
meeting?
regular meeting, yes. Next Thursday's a little
Yeah,
busy.
we're all set on Thursday.
Yes, yeah.
Set the title of that again for me, Mo?
It's the Community Emergency Management Plan. Yep. If you look at your email, it was February 2nd that I sent it to the members in the administrator's office.
If I may have a question.
Yes.
With the increase in treatment costs on the hospital, on the
Yep.
ambulance side, are you able to submit for insurance reimbursement
Yeah.
at those higher rates? I mean, obviously, all of that goes into the general fund though, right? So
Correct.
your budget is still set from
Last
last year.
So all as you know, all ambulance revenue that comes in goes to the general fund. We estimated ambulance revenue this time last year that we would generate during this year. Clearly, our ambulance revenue has gone up and is going to directly show in free cash in the fall that we collected more than we estimated. So that's a good thing. We worked very hard to look at all the revenue sources that we get for the ambulance, the service fee that we get from the town of Ocam. We get a federal reimbursement for Medicaid patients that we submit for. We've been able to leverage as much revenue as we can, and that number has been carried forward for FY23 as far as our revenue coming in. So unfortunately, we set the budget last year and it's a fixed number. Even though our revenue's gone up, I can't grab that revenue and come in. So we're just trying to work the best we can and get through this year. So.
Anybody else have anything for the chief? All right, good job. Thank you.
And when we get to the ARPA stuff, I got couple things I want to talk about when we get there.
I don't think I recognized you twice.
I know, I'm sorry. I'll put a different hat on.
All right. Do we have anybody from the assessor's office? No?
Yes, Amy is on Zoom.
Oh, okay. Hi, Amy.
Amy,
She
you're
must
muted.
recognize me.
No, she doesn't.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Hope everyone is well.
Yes, thank you for being on. You just want to give us an update on the assessors,
Sure.
please?
We are about to send out our second motor vehicle commitment with 556 bills for a total of $41,953. We've just sent out solar bills for the solar pilot program that we have in town. There were 9 bills, and then there was also 1 revised bill that we had sent out. We just had a board meeting this morning, and we were reviewing abatements for 2 properties that have come under the Crumbling Foundations program, which we're in the process of developing a protocol for how to handle this. I just found out today at the end of the day that there has been a recent development for how the state wants to guide what's going on. Before this, it was just a bunch of, hecking about what numbers we should actually deduct from the value. So I've sent that information to the board, and the next time that we meet, we will decide a protocol for how to handle such situations. And I'm going to develop a database for these folks and put them in there. And from what I read, it's going to go somewhat like percentages of damage kind of a thing, affecting the valuation of the assessment. Our admin assistant, Tessa Gurney, has just finished her 101 BLS course. She's actually completely changing the office. She's cleaning it up. She's organizing things. She's doing spreadsheets. She's a whiz bang. I don't know if anybody's been in there to meet her, but if you have a chance, please stop in. She's fantastic. I've been out measuring and listing all kinds of new construction, trying to catch up with all the building that's going on in the town, so that we can issue supplemental bills before or by May 1st. So the collector has time to make sure that she has to do everything on her end. And lastly, we've just closed out exemption season. We've approved the last ones this morning, and we'll be entering into the MDM1 probably next week for reimbursements. Other than that, we're just busy handling calls and walk-ins, dealing with motor vehicle abatements and any kind of real estate questions.
Great. Does anybody have any questions? All right, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.
All right, have a good night.
Thanks,
You
Amy.
too. Welcome.
So Carol reminded me that I forgot to do any kind of public comment. Do we have anybody for public comment on there?
We do have some folks on. I don't see anybody with their hand raised though.
Do we have any public comment? Behind me? All right.
Not tonight.
Don't say I didn't give you a chance.
Is he
Thank
feeling
you.
okay? He doesn't have anything? Is he feeling all right?
Oh, that's right. You usually give me a written list of 2 pages.
You want that?
No, I. Save it for Thursday.
All right.
Administrative report. You're up.
Okay, thank you. A couple of things I do have is, one, I don't know if Seth is going to elaborate on this at all, because he brought up ARPA. I did meet with, actually Karen, regarding the red line of fuel and energy. So I did meet with the ARPA committee in the beginning of, or the middle of last week, and we're about approximately $65,000 in the red for this current fiscal year, and we can only expect the same for next year. So I am asking for the board to approve $150,000 of ARPA funds to be used for fuel and energy for both the remainder of this fiscal and also for next. As you all know, I mean, the index for the last 12-month period that I looked at, just the fuel alone, the increase was 31%. So to put that on top of the $80,000, such as diesels and gases for the DPW in the whole town, it is quite an expense. So I just wanted to bring that to the board, requesting $150,000 for the 2 fiscals for energy and fuel. Seth, I don't know if that's what you wanted to talk to. Okay, thank you.
So you know, a motion for that, and is the money available, and can it be used for that?
It can be used for that. Right now, you have the total of the board's approval is $733,000. We have spent $453,000. Total approved and projected proposed projects is 1.1 and change, but the total funds available were 2.6. Now, the next allotment comes in August, which will match that, obviously. There are a few things that we do have to look into, Skip, and we did discuss this at our meeting, which is obviously the analysis for a second water source. And I have to get all the reports together, as you and I talked about, so I can better present that. We have to look at the windows, the siding at the library, the senior center. We have a leak at public safety that has to be addressed. Woodhouse building, I did tour that with Mr. Buckley, and I find that it's, and we put in 62.5, and I feel that it needs much more than that. There's some structural issues there that I did see. Cracks in the foundation, the front steps, the railings on the front. I know you guys are aware of this, we've talked about this, so I would really like to get the building inspector in there to take a look at that and give me a report on what he feels the structural issues that should be addressed and have to be addressed. Now, I know you got the 300th coming up. People are going to be visiting that building. More concerned about the facade of the building to make sure that that's safe for people. That and especially the railing. So, but all those, I will get all those facts and figures for you and report it at a later date.
So the funds you need for the fuel is, what was that?
$150,000
for this and
for
next
the remainder
year.
of this fiscal and into next. Now, you already got the $80,000 for the fuel costs anyway, and the energy comes out of purchase supplies and services. So we're looking for an additional $75,000 for each year.
Is the board comfortable with making a motion on that? I mean, we specifically have that listed on the agenda. We have discussion for ARPA funds, but that was more on.
Well, it's ARPA funds we're talking about.
I guess you comfortable with that?
It's,
Typically, what we'll do is we'll have the ARPA funds, and then we'll list all the different things, like the siding and the windows and the leak and then what the different items are that are going to be funded through it. And plus, I know there's quite a bit of funds still left in there. I'm not concerned with that, but we just keep a running tally on what's available and what's being used. But we're in the red, so these bills need to be paid now. So I mean,
So I'll make the motion to give 150, even 154,
150,000.
150,000 for adjustments on the fuel for the town of Rutland.
current
Fuel energy. Fuel energy.
Fuel and energy. Yep.
current and future, this year and next.
Hmm?
It's
fiscal
gonna
year
be
22 and
22 and 23.
Yep.
Do we have a second?
Mika's got that already.
Do we have a second?
I'll second for discussion first.
Okay.
Do you need one, do you need 75 for now?
Well,
I'm
right
just
now-
wondering if dividing it out, earmarking maybe some, but releasing.
Understood. I think right now the number is 65. And I know everyone knows that whatever we don't spend out of that can be allocated to a different line item.
And for reporting purposes, I would prefer that the accounts run deficit till June 30th, and then one transfer be made to cover them. The reason for that is if we start transferring one this week, that means people start drawing from that account in multiple times, it becomes very problematic to report to the federal government all these draws. I'd rather report one draw for FY '22, X number of dollars.
Right, but the one draw for 22 is the 65, and then the difference is for next year.
Correct, yes.
So what Carol's saying is probably better, right, if we do the 65 now, and then do the other one after?
Basically, what Dan
Separated by year,
yeah.
fiscal year?
That's up to you, or really up to Dan, on how we would want to show that. But Dan's just going to create an account number for fuel and energy costs and leave that amount. And then FY '22, there'll be one draw out of that account to cover the whole.
Got it.
That's what we're trying to do, is for accounting purposes, make it cleaner, and it'll make my job so much better.
Okay. So no, I'm fine.
Then we
I'm
better
fine
do
with-
that.
I'm fine with the 150. I just didn't know if it made sense to divide.
Right, to break it.
And
And earmark it.
so, if for some reason next year something happens and we don't need the full amount, and
Correct.
that would either default back into the ARPA fund
Correct.
or whatever, correct? I mean, it sounds like the
Right.
65-ish is pretty much set for this year. I'm just trying, like, I just pulled up, this was the update from Ron from forever ago with the spending thus far and everything, just because I like to see things, so you spouting out the numbers, I'm like,
Okay.
just to make sure. One of my fears is that without documentation, I don't want to suddenly have it be 150,000 here and there and everywhere, and then suddenly we have spent it all, which we justified we needed to spend, but we haven't done anything to show for it, which maybe that's how it needs to work. I don't know, but I just wanted to make sure that we had, that if it wasn't needed next year because something happens, fuel goes way down, or whatever, that then.
Right. And we have until what year to spend this? 25?
We have December 25.
25. I mean, and my concern is, we need to do this, but also
We need to fix the
typically
problem.
we've been trying to do these grants for like one-time expenses.
Right.
And this unfortunately will
Right.
not be a one-time
Yeah.
expense, but it's still one that we're gonna have to address, so.
Right.
um,
No, I think that, there was some emails going around earlier today about just kind of looking at larger budget structural issues, but I think for right now, this is something that we're not gonna be able to fix. Definitely not this 65,000 deficit for this current year, and going forward next year to try to, it's nice to have that wiggle room to know that we have it set aside.
So I don't wanna see all the vehicles running in town and everything, I think they get extra fuel. Trying to keep the cars warm or anything.
Oh, cool.
All right, so are you good with your second? Any other discussion? A roll call vote?
Clock eye.
Benoit eye?
Whiteman, I.
And Nichols' eye. All right.
Thank you. I also, for the board, looked into Wachusett Road. I do have the latest and greatest road inventory report from MassDOT, and it does not show a Wachusett Road on the inventory. Now, for those that don't know, and I'm sure most folks do, that if it's not on the inventory, thereby meaning it wasn't accepted by the town, and then wasn't further accepted by the state, is not eligible for state aid monies. I did mention to the state aid engineer, who's always been very helpful, and he still works from home actually, but he's going to the office tomorrow to see if he has anything that shows this was in fact discontinued. In talking to Anita, in 1987 town meeting, Article 6, this was brought up for a discontinuation, and it was a no action item. I have not seen anything, nor has she after that says it was in fact discontinued, but I have to know what the state shows. This has happened before. It's not just in the town of Rutland. This does happen. So I will get further report on that tomorrow and report back to you about that.
So if you get a definitive answer that it is definitely not a road, then we probably should look at canceling the the hearing we have coming up, right? Correct? I don't see any purpose in holding it if it's, does everybody agree?
Great.
Tamika, do you, I mean, not Tamika. Leah, do you agree? I mean,
Yeah, I don't, no, I think the purpose of saying to discontinue maintenance was just so that no more town.
right, and if it's not a town road, then that's what I'm
Right.
saying, we don't really
Right.
need to.
Right.
Okay.
But as far as the legal posting and everything, I mean, I assume it's just as easy to cancel, but because we had to do the, Tamika might know this aspect as far as canceling a legally posted public hearing and everything. Is there any time frame or notice that needs to be given or anything? It's just,
No, you can just cancel it.
Okay.
Nothing special.
So do we give Gary the authorization if he gets definitive confirmation tomorrow that it is not a town road, then we can have Tamika cancel it? Or do we wanna wait until, we don't want,
No, if you, as long as you get something in writing and not just a telephone call or email, whatever.
Okay.
I think you should have the notification, and because there's a lot of people upset about this, that road, a lot of people. So
Okay.
they should be known ahead of time, way ahead of time, so you don't come here and start yelling and screaming, I get it on the phone quite often.
Okay, you got it. I'll get what I can from them.
Do you want a motion for that, or you, we're just happy with it?
the board's comfortable, right? That's fine.
Okay? I do, so you know, and I believe everybody knows again, but the town report is not complete yet, and the deadline to the printer is April 23rd, in order that you receive the finished books by May 3rd. There are some departments that I still don't have town reports from. I've talked to some of them, and they're coming to me. So we have another, not even a week to get this stuff to the printer in order for us to have town reports.
So when you say some, how many departments are we waiting on?
There are, I want to say 5.
5 departments that have not done reports?
it's not even a week, the 23rd is Saturday, right?
Yeah.
Right, but that's what it has to be to the printer by, so I don't know if I've already talked to some of them, but
I don't know who they are. I don't know who didn't.
Put the name right out there, why not?
What departments
the
have?
information I have from the town report is the town clerk, town elections and town meeting minutes, Conservation Commission, July 4th Committee, Wachusett Regional High School, and Bay Path.
Oh, the schools.
I've talked to Mike Moriarty, and his is, should be on my desk as we speak, so that was listed as well,
So
so.
softball him. Because he's sitting there. The schools, don't they do like a generic one?
Do
Like,
they know that they need to provide it?
They know only those that I've been able to contact. I do need contact folks from, well, the July 4th Committee. I can certainly get that within town. I need contacts from Bay Path and Wachusett to see who submits their annual, so I can reach out to them.
I can get you those contacts, Gary.
Okay, great, okay, very good.
and I'm
And I
sure
can get
Mr. Clark will take care of conservation at 7 o'clock.
I probably can do that.
I have that report and we submitted it a while ago, but it was back at the beginning, so it might have gotten lost. So I
Okay,
do
all
have
right.
that and I'll just email it to you.
Okay, great, very good, thank you.
So I can go through Beth's emails too and see if there's anything.
And when you say minutes, what is that?
I've just got the list that's missing that's labeled, that,
I think it's
Report.
town meeting minutes.
Oh.
So minute,
That the-
meeting,
that the-
meeting minutes from
yeah, town
last
meeting
year's
minutes,
town
correct,
meeting.
yeah.
And those were the ones that, no, Beth wasn't there.
No, this is the, what's empty in the
Oh, the
town
clerk
report.
keeps the minutes?
Yeah.
Town clerk, yeah, okay.
All right, so. All right.
Well, other than that, alls I have is we are still trying to put together the finalized version of all the articles. We have a couple to add to that. Hopefully, Carol's coming to visit me tomorrow. Hopefully, we'll get what we would like to think would be a final for Thursday night's meeting to be published and posted on Friday.
And the backup to Karen.
Don't ever forget Karen.
It's not just me, it's my group. We like to do homework. We don't like to just show up. We don't want to be there until 11 o'clock at night.
Okay.
And Anita knows that we'll be getting her everything but Friday morning, because I know that the clerk's office is generally closed. I know generally somebody's around, but as far as
She
posting.
sent a recent email, so she's aware of the timing of it.
Okay.
So, Right?
I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's only closed to the public, she works.
no, I know, I mean, I think, but I just wanted to make sure that, that they were expecting it.
That's all I have, sir.
All right, and just as a side note, I did get a call from Mr. Zotley, and he is withdrawing his 61A. He's going to send a letter to the town, but until we receive the letter, I don't think we will consider it as official. But
Okay.
that was what he had indicated to me today, so. All right, does anybody have any questions for the town administrator?
No.
Yep. Make it easier on your first meeting, come on. We'll wait, you wait, we're gonna fight before it through.
I noticed my name was spelled correctly on the board. Thank you very much.
Discussions on Christmas Tree Lane, we never actually put this to rest. I think the final determination still is that we would still have to send out a public notice, do an appraisal,
Yeah.
and associated expenses with it.
I think that there were questions, if I may, sorry.
Yep.
I think that there were questions because we had asked Ron to look into procurement law because it's assessed at such a low dollar amount if it actually needed to follow procurement law. And I don't know that he ever did check into that before because I think it's only, I think it's assessed at like $700 or something on the assessor's card. So I'm pretty sure procurement is, I don't know the numbers, all the different levels of numbers, but I think the lowest in my head is 10,000, and I don't even think that that follows the full, like RFP,
So you don't have to
process.
appraise it or survey it or anything? Or?
I don't know. That was one of our. I think that was the big question we had for Ron, and
He kept saying it to the end. I don't know if he actually went further into the discussion.
I think the other point that was trying to be made too was that, do we feel comfortable as a board just saying, okay, you came to us, you asked, here it is, versus asking, making that
Make it
public
available
knowledge
to
and
anybody.
saying, whether we're required to do an RFP or not, it's still.
or if there's a way to do something like excess town property, excess town equipment or town property or something, and then with the notice that, because I'm pretty sure that the landowner or the abutter who had come to us originally was willing to pay the legal expenses and everything for purchasing it. So if there's a process, and I don't know off the top of my head what that process is to declare it as excess town whatever, and
But
then
we're trying to maintain open space, so what's excess if it's space that the town owns and we can assure that nothing ever happens to it?
he's not looking to build on it.
But the person who buys it next, is they gonna put a big in-law next to, in on it now
I
that
don't think
there's
it's
a?
big enough to. I mean, these are all questions that I think
If
we,
you merge the two together. now
Yeah, you merge
have
that
more
property,
than
you have a
enough
bigger
land to
lot,
put
and then you
in-law
can,
apartment and
and you
everything
can
else
put
on.
in-law apartments on any house.
I don't know enough. I don't, like I said, I just was looking at it from the perspective of, I know in the past we've had a lot of land, a lot of residents who have wanted the opportunity to purchase excess town property and haven't been given that opportunity. And if there's a way to not earmark it for certain individuals, but allow it through a process so that people can
Well, they,
increase their property values, which
but
would
they were,
benefit our tax
they were
base.
given an opportunity, you're talking about the tax sales, ones that were sold at tax sale. And I know that several of those, one big property, a lot of
Right.
those residents bought those properties before it went to tax sale. So people were buying some of those lots prior to it going to sale.
I thought that they weren't allowed to buy. I thought that it all had to go as a giant lump sum. I don't know.
Well,
I
no,
just,
but prior to the town taking it, they approached the owners and bought lots. So
I
some of
didn't
the,
follow the private.
and some of the ones that were involved in the campaign to make the town sell it separately bought some of those lots prior to the tax sale. So.
Yeah, I wasn't involved in the.
So
private
there is
side.
an avenue for people to get properties, you know what I mean, prior
Right,
to
I
going
just
to
was
the
looking at it
town.
in this case, it's a very tiny lot that the homeowner wanted to do improvements on his lot, which would increase his property value, which would then benefit our tax base. Again, I don't know if there's a blanket policy that can be done or not. Admittedly, this kind of fell off my
I just have
radar of
concerns that
to-do.
if we also get rid of a property, that we may have some, this was that area where we had some sewer line easements, there's not on that lot, right? You're familiar with the
Right,
lot at the end
the
of
sewer line is actually on the property next door, the easement. It
Yeah.
goes through to the heights, yes.
going through the heights, so it has access somewhat near the heights.
And
And it's the end of that road.
Right. And I just asked that before, if the town were to consider it, that we reach out to planning board and RDIC to see if there's any reason to retain possession of those lots, or if getting them back onto the tax roll through a neighbor betterment is doable. I don't know. Like I said, this kind of all admittedly fell off my to-do list, unfortunately, so.
So I mean, so what are we getting, what would it be worth for taxes if it's only worth that kind of money? You're not gonna, when you put it back on the tax rate, that's not gonna give us much taxes.
It's better than what we're getting now.
If we're looking for every penny and nickel and dime, it is, and I don't know, like I said, I haven't done the analysis to look at the lot size and everything. The gentleman who had come in to spoke definitely was clear that he wanted to be able to be mindful of the conservation and everything, address drainage concerns on his property, and it wasn't for a buildable space or anything like that. Again, I don't know any specifics other than what we had in the town, in the meeting those few times, and having asked Ron a couple times to look into procurement law for such a small valued piece of town property.
Do you wanna follow up on that, Gary? Just see?
I think I don't know if you're
Oh,
available.
Dick,
I was gonna say, if I remember rightly, it's roughly about 45 feet by 45 feet, something, it's relatively small, and also there's a small little stream fairly close to it, so building on it, I don't think it's gonna happen.
So if there's a stream there and he's gonna regrade it, that doesn't have any effect on the water or the conservation?
It probably would not, I don't know how far away it's gonna be, but
He actually already came through the commission and we issued a determination of applicability, so he's all set with us.
So if he wants to regrade it, then
Yes.
it's acceptable?
Yep.
I was gonna say, he seemed knowledgeable to know that that there was a process that he needed to follow, and that it was, conservation needed to be involved and everything. I don't know, again, I understand that it's not always applicable, and I also understand that in some cases it is, and I don't know how to make that process so it's not a independent every time somebody comes knocking kind of thing, or maybe, I don't know.
So is there an abutter on the other side?
It's the town,
The town owns everything except for this guy?
except there's one lot on the other side
Right.
is the neighbor. But everything in the back of it is
No,
all
but there's
town.
another neighbor that
Yeah.
abuts it as well, who
And I was
who may
just-
have an interest.
And I was just suggesting that potentially, if the town is amenable to it, then that there's some clause that whatever buyer is interested is responsible for all legal fees. The gentleman who came to ask for the property himself had said that he was willing to encompass all of that. We as a town can't say, we're selling it to you because you're gonna pay for it all, but I don't know if there's a way that the town can put in a posting that the buyer is responsible for all legal fees and then actually collect on it versus just saying that and then.
one last thing, the other side that had the easement on it for the sewer, that's something I think the town should keep. And not only that, in the future, there's a possibility, who knows about Moseo's little field he's got out there.
Right, so is this access to
That
that
would
property?
be where the
No.
easement is, not the one we're talking about, but the other side.
The other one is where the access would be.
And it's roughly the same size parcel.
Can't put a road where there's a stream.
You can regrade it. And
Yes, but you can't
I've
grade.
seen houses in
Can't,
in
yeah, but
swamps,
you
so I don't
know.
really know what, I'd buy that one. Or you can build a bridge. I've seen that one too.
So Richard, if I may, you said 45 by 45?
Roughly, that's what I saw.
And is there any limitation is the buffer zone for the wetland out
Or
there?
it would be.
Foot,
Okay,
100
so we don't know what that is.
100
Okay.
feet.
100
It's
feet.
100 feet.
And also, that doesn't, I know years ago, I'm sure you remember, Richard, that we drained that beaver pond that was completely blocked.
Yep.
The culvert. I don't really, and I believe, I know it went back that far, but, so you still got that creek that runs up the center of it, so.
That's the one.
We
That's
still have
correct.
the wetland issue to look at to make
That's
sure.
what they said.
Well, they said
Yeah.
conservation looked at that.
We've already approved it.
Oh, you did, okay, all right, okay, thank you.
All right, so at this point, we're just going to table it
continued.
until.
I like it.
All right.
Littleton has a policy.
So next on the agenda is a one-day liquor license for Milk Room for the 300th Anniversary Committee Friday Night Concert Series. I think I gave that, that's in that folder.
Yeah.
I have a question. Do we know if anybody else expressed an interest in having any or some or take part in, instead of having one entity having 17 licenses for the entire time? I know it was done last year, I just didn't know. I don't want to get caught out.
You're looking at 28, if you're counting the ones on this license.
Those are rain dates. There's
So
17.
if it's a rain date, you still got 28.
You got license, yes, 28 license, well, no, if you don't use them, if you don't use it, they're rain date uses, but I'm just, like I said, I don't wanna get caught out. Somebody saying that they didn't get asked, is there anybody else in
Who
town?
else has a brewer's license
I
in
don't
town?
know.
This is a town, I mean, a town.
Right, I mean, if
Right.
he's the only one in town that can do it, then that's how we can
I
cover
don't know.
ourselves, I
I
just
don't
wanna
know
make sure.
if Lilac Hedge, has they got a license, do any brewery?
Couldn't tell you. No idea.
I don't either.
I know that it comes through the 300th. You know, the email that we got was from Jeff. 'Cause I
Right.
think he's the one that's been organizing the concerts and stuff. So I don't know what the 300th process policy.
Well, there's still a town committee, so they still gotta make sure that they're.
But I'm saying I don't know what work
Well,
is.
I guess the only thing I can say is we haven't had anybody complain that they didn't get, with last year's, but I understand the concern to make sure we're not
I was just
limiting.
gonna add, last year when we did the concerts, I do know that Center Tree did participate, at least one of them, as the vendor for alcohol. We could always go back and look and see who we issued permits to, or licenses to
I
last year.
don't
'cause
think
it
we
was-
did a license for that, I think they must have had it underneath their own. I don't think we did.
They might have had it under
separate
there to
permit.
go. They might have had it
Yeah,
under
because
there to go.
they were allowing all the drinks to go.
Okay.
I'm not, I don't, I mean, I vaguely remember, but.
Specifically,
But just so we spread the wealth around police and fire when we did the food truck festival
Yeah.
and the 5K run, we used brewers from not only this town, but other brewers in the area as well. So we are attracting others to come in as well too, so.
That was the brigade.
The brigade did that, and then the K9 Foundation used 7 Saws out of Holden.
I don't know why there can't be more than one person with selling beer there anyway, myself personally.
I just go back to the owner of the establishment being a board member in town. And that's where I'm afraid we might get caught out.
Yeah, it's a gray area, real gray, almost black.
Well, like I said, I mean, there's nothing to stop us considering other requests for licenses to
In
have
addition
other
to-
vendors in addition to that as
Yeah,
well.
That's
yeah.
fine.
Like I said, if we had received any complaints, I would have more of a concern. I understand and I feel the same way. We want to make sure we give opportunities to everybody, but
Okay, so this isn't, as long as it's not exclusionary, then I
Right.
can just
I
certainly do
don't, I
that.
don't see why we wouldn't be able to entertain other vendors should they approach us. And we can have those discussions with the committee. Is the board fine with
just
that?
to be
It's
devil's
fine with that.
advocate,
Yep.
just to be devil's advocate, I don't necessarily know that other vendors know. Like, if it was put out to the public, they might not know, so we wouldn't hear from anybody.
Well, I think they would say, we're trying to keep it local, like in town. I mean, I know the brigade has used a lot of different breweries around the area. But I think for the 300th, I think they are trying to keep as much in town, and I don't think there is another brewer
I like
in
it.
town.
They're not brewer.
Do they brew?
No.
They don't.
I don't think
That's
they
what-
brew,
do not
but
brew.
they're another purveyor in town. It's a
Right,
local
so
town.
they participated in the brigade,
Yep.
and I can't imagine if they want to participate in the concerts that they approached anybody or the board or.
Well, the question would be, did the 300th committee ask anybody else? In my mind, it's, I mean, they're supposed to be running the show. And
I
I would
don't,
be willing to bet.
I'm not seeing a problem, like I said, as long as it's not exclusionary, and we could have a second or a third one up there at the same time. I think that's,
Right.
Because they're all gonna donate back to the 300th,
Right.
whether it's 1 or 10.
And if Lilac Hedge approached us and wanted to be a
Do
vendor as well,
wine or
and
beer and
then
wine or
Cider.
even
Yeah.
cider.
I don't see why that wouldn't be considered.
Moonshine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go for that. Why not? It's Rutland. We're on the hills. All right, so is everybody okay? And
Yep.
consensus that, we will consider other requests for permits?
Yeah, and I think in a lot of ways it makes sense to.
We gotta have the beer. The music's not that good.
Well, it gives the police
no.
more income too, too.
All right, so do I have a motion of any kind?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
second.
Any other discussion? And so do we have to read the dates on the
No.
permit?
Do you want the,
We usually do.
Yeah. Skip's
I
trying-
have a copy.
Skip always leaves it up to you to know, like.
We'll give you a copy of this.
It's just-
It's okay, I have
So
a
the-
copy. Skip.
No, so the,
Copy,
no,
I'll rip it
the
up and
public
give it
should
That's okay, I
just,
have it.
All
should
right.
just read the dates for the public.
so, do you want me to read them?
Yeah,
It's
please.
June 3rd, June 10th, 17th, 18th, 24th. July 1st, 2nd, 29th. August 5th, 12th, 19th, 26th. September 2nd, 9th, 16th, 23rd, 30th. And then the rain dates would be June 4th, 11th, and 18th. July 30th. August 6th, 13th, 20th, 27th. And September 3rd, 10th, 17th, 24th, and October 1st. And it's from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Roll call?
Clock eye.
Benoit eye?
Appointment I.
And Nichols, aye. Thank you. All right. Discussion and possible action, the ARPA Fund Committee's motion. Town of
It's actually your motion, not the opera's committee. This is,
Smith,
would be
I'm
your
just reading
motion.
what's on the agenda. It's gonna be for someone else to make the motion.
Yeah, true.
That's why I get the big bucks. So, the town of Rutland has decided to report all ARPA funds using the standard allowance of up to $10 million for reporting purposes in accordance with the final report set forth by the Department of Treasury. So, need somebody to make that motion?
So moved.
Do I have to read it? You have to read the motion, don't you?
You already read
You
it.
just did it.
How many times do you want to read it?
The select board votes to accept.
Where do you see that?
That's Skip's motion. Do I have a
The
second?
select board, yeah, you already read it.
Whitman seconds.
Any other discussion or clarification? I think we kind of understand.
Obviously, if we're going to use the 10 million rule to basically declare the 2.6 or 2 point whatever it is as lost revenue, that makes the reporting easier on our end. Ultimately, the board still has final control on what projects are approved. I just need the board's okay that we're gonna report that way. And I will just going to assume, since there's no one else, that I will be doing the reporting. As all other.
It's all yours.
Thanks, appreciate it, Skip.
He doesn't
So.
want it. We should
I just heard him volunteer.
Yeah. We do have an April 30th deadline to report all expenditures for the first quarter. I'm working with Department of Treasury right now to get some things fixed. There's a process to get qualified. Process had not happened, so we're trying to resolve some issues and get this thing all squared away so we can report everything next week.
So if I can, for the people listening, or minutes or whatnot, so this is taking it from buckets.
Correct.
So individual buckets of spending, we're taking the funds that the reporting does not have to funnel through buckets, but it's all one type of funding now. And we don't have $10 million for anybody that's
Correct.
listening. It's that is the limit that the federal government has put on spending for lost revenue.
The bucket list
The
spending.
bucket list
Yeah.
spending. So.
And the
that's-
town administrator will keep us
Yes.
apprised of the balance as we go through this process.
And this is legally what needs to happen,
Yes.
correct? Like to kind of open up those buckets.
Well, because once I get into the portal and log in, I have to click, are we using the buckets or are we using the lost revenue? So that sets the whole framework of how it's reported. So I just need your direction on that.
Sounds good.
So it's easier for you, the buckets or the lost revenue?
Lost revenue.
Right.
That's why it's printed here.
That's right.
Kinda
No
like
mistakes.
leading us in a direction.
Yeah.
Well, plus it allows us to use it for,
Other purposes.
Yeah.
Right.
yeah,
The
like
the
lost
buckets were limiting.
revenue.
Yes.
More flexibility and stuff.
We could poke holes in the buckets.
And it still has to come for ultimate, I mean, I would assume everything's still going through the ARPA committee and then
Correct.
funneled through to the board. So
Correct.
it's not just like a free check to any
Correct.
individual in town. It
Correct.
still follows the process.
Yep.
All right. Roll call.
But
Good
Wait
night,
a
Ed.
minute, oh, wait a minute.
Nichols, that was a first. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And
Thank you, Zach.
ECC positions to fill. Thank you.
All right. So I did pass out a handout to all of you, just to go over what I'm looking to discuss and look for any possible action here tonight. My duties are growing, and the requirements per the state are growing and evolving each day. Making my time limited, especially with day-to-day operations, issues happening with our radio network, things of that nature. The first 2 pages pretty much outlines what's in the process. We have, four major projects on the list right now, which is towards the bottom of this first page here. 5 major projects that the state has funded, which is approximately $1.4 million worth of projects. These are all capital items on my department, as we do not have a capital process outlined for my department within the town of Rutland at this point, due to the fact we're a regional system and trying to figure out how we are going to assess or charge the other communities if such capital item is approved by the town of Rutland is another process that has to be looked into in the future. But ultimately, the State 911 Department has given us $1.4 million to complete these projects here listed. I can tell you the first one has been started. It's been in the process for multiple years now, but we're making headway at this point. And hopefully within the next, 2 to 3 weeks, we'll actually start some construction on site in Hubbardston, which is a huge project due to the town of Hubbardston wanting this project done as soon as possible so they can put out RFPs for cell phone providers for their community. As a lot of you know, that once you enter the town of Hubbardston, you lose all cell phone reception due to no providers being out there. These other projects, the Southbury communication tower, the security measures, and the radio equipment relocation all are still on their plate. Haven't been able to give any time to them due to reimbursements that need to be done pretty much every single day. Quarterly reports, quarterly financial reports, the list goes on from there. Grant modifications, I'm in the process of writing 2 RFPs. So my job is very cumbersome at this point. It's almost getting to the tipping point where I'm going to be struggling. So I'm looking for the administrative assistance by creating this deputy director's position to help me administratively behind the scenes to process some of these reports, as well as giving our other communities better exceptional services, providing them with quarterly financial documents that has been brought up in previous stakeholder meetings, which we haven't had recently. Having those meetings on a regular basis. A lot of things have gone on the wayside due to the tasks that are just piling up on my desk. Town projects, handling the charter communications project, that one, the town phones, the town sign. Got a lot of jobs and duties. So ultimately, I'm looking to see if the board would be willing to look at this and provide that additional support that I need. This position would ultimately be a salaried position. They would take a $5,000 to $8,000 pay cut after promotion, and I'll get into why and why it may not matter. It'll restrict this individual from obtaining overtime, which the 2 people that are eligible for this position right now are averaging roughly $7,000 to $8,000 in overtime a year for the past 2 to 3 years. It'll alleviate any overtime needed during the 7 to 3 time block, Monday through Friday. So anybody that calls out, vacations, that person will just fall in place, alleviating any overtime being occurred. Like I said, it would reduce their wages $5,000 to $8,000. Currently, right now, my supervisors are making before taxes, I believe, 75-ish. I believe 75,000. I'm looking at this position being at 70. Reducing the number of supervisors that we have within the department. This position obviously has other perks where it's a Monday through Friday position, doesn't work holidays, can't be forced in. So there's a lot of other perks on the other side where the $5,000 to $8,000 makes up in that part. The State 911 Department has given the town of Rutland $35,000 already in grant money to make this position happen. So that's ultimately what we need to make a decision on, if we're going to implement this position or if we're going to give the $35,000 back to the State 911 Department. Rutland's portion of that $35,000 is $13,135.50. So that's Rutland's percentage of that $35,000. That was a prorated amount to implement the deputy director's position.
Can I ask a question about that, Mike?
Yes, sir.
35,000, your portion is 13,100. Does this position have to go through the other towns for their approval as well?
No, ultimately, the town of Rutland is the hiring board and the decision makers. We've gone through this before with other positions as well. When we hired our 9th full-time employee here, we're a host community. It's Rutland's decision to make.
Okay.
We are still looking in the future to move towards a district model, which would then open up the decision-making to all 5 communities equally.
So was this discussed and factored in with the finance committee when you met with them?
I did discuss. It was budgeted in my FY23 budget as well. So that was in there. I believe I did touch upon it with Karen as well. With that being in the FY23 budget, as well as all the other expenses from the union CBA moving up and the other increases in my budget, Rutland's percentage was 2% to their annual assessment.
So is that in your current budget you have right now, Tom?
His amount went down from where he originally did, so yeah.
Right, but this additional is already in there as well?
Yes, because it's a reduction.
Oh, okay.
It's a reduction, so therefore it sticks out. But he said it's less, not more. So yes.
So we probably don't want to spend less.
If I may,
Yes.
I know Mike has done a ton keeping up with grants and looking for grants, funding, and not only for position-wise, but also to expand the facility, the services the facility can offer and everything. So I think, I hear that they can help on the administrative side and the paperwork and the reporting and everything. And I've been pushing the town to kind of look for a grant administrator to help the entire town, but we're not there yet. We don't have that. And so I think if we can match the funding for the salary with some state money, and it's an overall reduction based on overtime and coverage, then I think it makes sense. I mean, I think Mike does a phenomenal job, and I think that he has a lot of balls in the air right now, and there's just more coming. And the amount of grant funding that he brings in, I think, is admirable. So to assist with any reporting or anything.
And just to hit another point, I am applying for the full amount of the deputy director's position for FY23. So currently right now it is budgeted into the current budget right now. But if we get awarded that grant, which I think becomes available around June, I'll get the award letter. If we're awarded it, if that's the case, then my budget will go down. Whatever we decide, it'll go down roughly $70,000. So surplus back to the town. And that's how my salary currently right now for the last 2 years has been reimbursed by the state 911 department. So we've been having a surplus the last 2 years.
So, 2 questions.
Yes.
Is this then a contract position, not a union?
It's
Right.
not in the union, no, because it'd be
So it'd be a
a
contract.
managerial position contract, yes.
I thought so, and it's
Yep.
probably in here, it's just
Yeah.
a lot of pages.
Yes, it's a lot, yeah.
And the other question is that you'll do an internal search for a number of
First.
times. Now, is that required by the union? Since this is not a contract, this is a contracted, not a union. But, so it probably
It's
doesn't
under the-
need to do
Right.
any of that, so is it like a 10-day internal, or
Yeah, I do have 2 applicants internally that
that's what
could
you're
apply for it,
expecting?
yes, yeah.
And you're expecting that, so.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all, thank you.
Can we get a motion? Proceed.
Make a motion to proceed with letting Director Moriarty hire a deputy director.
Second.
Whitman seconds.
And a roll call?
Benoit, aye?
Whitman, aye.
And Nichols, aye? How about you, Skip?
Sure.
All
Thank you
right.
very much, I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Appreciate all your
Thanks
time.
for all your work.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
So Gary, the board had met and we had set a bunch of goals and objectives, and we usually keep that on the agenda just to make sure that we keep them in mind. There is an economic development plan committee. I don't know if there was delays in the meeting.
Oh, I hope not, because he's supposed to.
Right,
They
it's
met
supposed
the other, I think they met,
Last Thursday.
last
Oh.
Thursday after FinCom. They
Oh.
met.
Okay.
There you go.
And I think that they were meeting with CMRPC, I think, over some of the master plan stuff. I don't know for sure. So, I was trying to get on the meeting, but I think there were some Zoom issues, and I think the meeting started a little late, and I didn't have patience. So I didn't hang tight for too long. I think Randy Jordan's the chair of that
Randy
committee,
Jordan?
I
Okay,
think.
good.
He is.
Okay, thank you.
We haven't really done anything on the websites, right?
No,
Nothing.
we'll, after town meeting, we'll.
Although we do
start
want to
looking at
discuss
that
some
again.
of the policies on social media and other things. I know we had discussed that, and you said there's some
Mhm.
things, verbiage in some of the contracts. Boards and commissions, are we still even running that on the sign? Are we looking, I don't think we filled any vacancies, I think the
I
sign
don't
board.
think so.
I think right now, kind of going into
A new year?
a new year, I would just kind of informally like to put a push that we, the board seriously consider reinstituting the managed growth subcommittee that was kind of the one that worked through CMRPC when that bylaw went into effect. I think we owe it to the town to look at what that bylaw has done for the town as far as building, as far as financials, as far as whatever information we can get. I think that bylaw had a 5-year sunset with the option to renew for another 2 to 4, I don't know for sure. But I just am looking at it more from, we have this bylaw, but there's no accountability as to what, has it worked, has it not worked, there were some concerns I know about it being, Rutland remaining a housing choice community and how to manage those numbers. And I don't think that there's been a whole lot, that committee hasn't met since the bylaw passed. It was never reseated. So I think reseating a committee with a slightly different charge or a defined charge as far as looking at what has worked, what hasn't, what might be plans for future or not, I don't know.
But that's probably something best we do when we set up all the committees and appointments.
I mean, yes, I think given now that we're already essentially
Right.
almost into May,
Right.
but I just would like to just kind of formally put it out there that I would like to see that piece come back.
So it's called the managed growth,
Managed Growth Subcommittee, right?
Yeah, I think it was
and it's part of,
I think it was part of planning. I'm not 100% sure.
okay. So just to let people know, because we don't currently have a secretary in place, and we're very, very busy, I worked with Beth before she left, and I have the listing
Yep.
of all of the committees and who serves. I'm going with that, and also what's on the website, which the website does seem to be up to date, and I'm going to try to formalize it, or I will. I'm going to formalize it, so that we have, I think I mentioned to Lyndon, the meeting just before July 1, I think is on the 27th of June. And I'd like to have us have everything signed that day, so we're not playing with them for the 2 months after July 1 and figuring out all the pieces of it, so.
Yeah, I know when I was the first year I was on the board, we kind of were doing them in pieces. We had done a bunch in the beginning of June, end of May, beginning of June, which was, as a newly elected member, it was tough to kind of get everything under, but it hasn't always been all done in one meeting, and it hasn't always, it's been done kind of differently all
It's
throughout.
my goal, we'll see how it happens, I can
Right.
fall on my face with it, but I'm gonna try.
But I just am putting out there that if we have a group that are ready to go kind of the beginning of June, maybe it makes sense to do them, then at least we can check those off, as we don't have to worry about following up with them.
Try to make it
Whatever.
easier on all parties,
Right.
I think that might help.
And Human Resources, what's the status on the step thing? Is that,
Well, with everything that's going on, we've kind of, Leah and I think, have talked about how we can whittle down the list of people, because including everybody is a large sum of money.
So I think one thing that came out is, cable pays their staff out of their cable fund. They have said, I think in their presentation to finance, they had allocated a certain amount which I think would more than cover their allocation. They're not a very large allocation. Recreation and Safe Place have large number of employees. I need to go back and see what the max step some individuals are eligible for, because I don't think everybody would just go to their max. For some employees who may have only been employed for 1 or 2 or 3 years, they may not get all the way to that max step.
And those all come out of their own funds anyway,
Yes,
right?
but
So that's not gonna affect
that's the other piece is I need to reach out to Karina and Sarah and see if they have funds that they can cover those increases, because I don't necessarily know that they have increased their fees to cover a potential increase in salary. If that makes sense.
But theirs is all seasonal too, though. So do they get the same type of a step increase?
That's what they're all hired at steps, and I need to go back and look through the employee handbook to see how the steps are worded. Because I think that they're after a certain number of years of service, and I don't know if it's 1 through 4 is 4 years and you should get to the 4th step, or if it's 1 year is 1 year, 2. I need to.
Because if it's a part-time position, then you're not going to get. It's not going to be a full year. So what's considered a year? If you're only working.
But if they're still coming back.
But that's still not a year, because like most places it's time in service. So if they work a 3-month period, then that's only a quarter of a year. So they may not be eligible for steps until
right
4 years.
But and so that's what I need to.
Right.
And I don't think that we got that information. We need to dig for that information. And also, I think we also need to be mindful, because we want to be fair with all of our compensation across the board. That was part of our big goal for it.
I think there's a big part of their workforce that rotates all the time, and then there's a part that's consistent. So they like a lot of their summer pool, the kids that come and go, after a couple of years and stuff. So.
Right. But it's a large chunk of money, which obviously needs to be looked at for subsequent budget years. It's not, to cover it this year doesn't solve the problem. Like, it's an ongoing budget deficit then.
Right. But so, how are we going to have that factored in for the budget? So you're just trying to scale it down to figure out?
I'm trying to,
Because we even talked about part of it being this meeting, and then part of it being in the fall, right?
Yeah, in November again, when we can see how the year's going. I think what we need to do is to take out the ones that we don't hold the budget for, and then we can recommend it to the other people. But if they have their own budgets, we can't tell them what they can and can't do.
And they're still town employees.
But
right.
If their salaries are covered by their funds, we can't insert ourselves and say, yes, you need to raise them, and then their funding can't keep that going.
Right, because much like cable, it's like they're taking care of it themselves and figuring it out.
Right.
So we're not telling them how to.
I just am saying that if there's never been a conversation about it in the past.
So I think that's what Carol was saying, is still make the recommendation, but you really can't tell them.
Right, and I just want to be mindful that had they known that it was a conversation, they may have been able to adjust fees accordingly to say, okay, we need to cover salaries, these are what salaries are, so therefore our fees need to, but because they've been operating that, it's no steps and it's just COLAs, then they haven't been increasing fees to potentially cover that. So I just want to be mindful that it's a communication piece as much as it is.
Right, I understand. All right, and then the budget's all set.
It's not done.
Well, back in the day.
Back in the day, we used to have informational sessions.
No,
Back
we
in
did.
February, we were done. We were sitting with our feet up, they'll get it 20 minutes before the town meeting.
If I may, about the budget, I know we had an email today come in from Joe addressing kind of longer term needs. The fuel, for example, is not necessarily going to be, that's something we can't control. And so I think he had recommended that maybe FinCom, department heads, select board, CIPC, any other stakeholders are involved in kind of ongoing discussions, because I think what this year has shown us is we thought we were okay kind of, I mean, we knew last year we had a really tough budget year, but then we budgeted everything, made cuts, and then inflation and cost of everything has gone up, and there's nothing. And we've spent so many years not addressing a lot of things around in our buildings or just salaries around whatever, that everyth's starting to boil up a little bit, and we're getting hit left and right, and it's not sustainable. So I would like to try to start after this town meeting, proactively start meeting with, as a group, or maybe it's a little subgroup, and look at, what are our options? Maybe it's an override. I don't know where. Are we going to shut down all the buildings? Are we going to take off all of
I think that was kind of what our golden objective was originally, that we were going to be meeting, and it just didn't work out that way. That was what the board had discussed doing earlier than.
Right. But I would like to try to, formally get that.
I agree. We definitely need to be doing something much earlier in the year.
And that's, yeah.
We've only level funded the budget and have only level funded the budget for many years and then cut the level funding. So we are not ever making headway. We are just plugging the holes as best we can. That's all we're doing.
And I think as we saw this year is things have been plugged for so long that now there are bigger holes coming into the open, and so it feels like it's a lot of fires going every which way, because we just have for so long not been able to address anything. So.
Well, that's why when we were looking at ARPA funding for some of these building repairs that have been neglected for years and years, I mean, those are one-shot deals that should have been taken care of. Still, maintenance will continue on, but there's a lot of issues with a lot of buildings. So.
And then my other question is just not necessarily for tonight, but just kind of for the future. I know Gary's just on, but kind of the board's plans for a permanent town administrator and what that process is going to look like and everything. So I just want to put it out there. We don't need to have that conversation tonight. I know it's Gary's first board meeting and there's a whole lot of stuff going on and everything, but
he doesn't want the job.
Well, I just think right now with
getting
getting through the warrant and the town meeting and everything else, I figured that we'd start right up. Because we had discussed looking at at the agencies and stuff.
The only thing to be is if you guys could give us a heads up, because if we have to include anything in the budget.
For
those funds that you might need.
Right, which I had talked to Dan, and he said May. To talk to him, and did you talk to Dan about the fund?
We spoke of funding for Gary,
yeah,
not for going forward. So we need to discuss if you guys are going to hire a search firm.
Right. Okay.
Where are those funds coming from? That kind of thing. So we kind of need to have, sooner than later, we kind of need to know this because it's going to require funds.
Do you have any idea when we use those firms, what kind of money they cost?
In my head is about 10,000 plus or minus.
10 or 12.
I don't remember, because we had done one for DPW and I think that was 5 to 7-ish, and then I think
we used it for Mike, and we used it for Margaret.
Yeah, so I think for Margaret we used the Collins Center out of UMass, and then I think for Mike we used Community Paradigm Associates. Both, those are the two that I know of because those are the two that the town has used. Both I think were very similarly priced. Both would have a lot of the town profile. They would have to do a little bit of updating, but they have the town profile already done that's fairly recent. I mean, Margaret was how many years ago, but it would definitely, both would require updating, but it wouldn't be starting from ground zero.
Well, I hope it's gonna be a very thorough search and a very thorough vetting before we go into our next town administrator.
And I mean, I'm a proponent of the search firms because they do all the background checks. They know where people are as far as people that may be moving up or ready for that next step or whatever. I wasn't involved with Margaret coming in, but I was with when we brought Mike, and they brought us, we had asked them to basically do all of the interview and pre-screening and everything, and they brought us, I believe it was 4 candidates for the board to do board interviews, open to the public and everything. But they provided those candidates to us that were fully vetted and everything. So that was kind of my personal preference and everything. There's a cost to that, but then also...
Well, I kind of thought that we were getting people that were vetted when we got the last selection too, but I'm not quite sure how that process worked.
That was the chair's self-appointed committee.
Right. So I can
Yeah.
appoint whoever I want.
If you want to, actually, I'm not going to say whatever. Just one more thing, I don't know how do we want to get this, if there's anything that needs to get out. Apparently, the Asian Longhorn Beetle Eradication Program, they came and they did a survey of the trees, and they found nothing of significance.
Oh, good.
I
I
got
thought you were
back
going
to
to tell me
them.
they did.
No, nothing of
You guys made me
significance.
nervous.
That hasn't been
Nope,
confirmed in a long
nope,
time.
but
I
just
knew
in
they
case
were on
anybody's
the
been
ball,
waiting
but
for
yeah.
this. And I asked if this is a routine inspection or if it's an as needed, and she says as needed. And right now, they have no plans to come back
Good.
because there's nothing to see, so. Nothing to see.
They have no plans, you mean the search team has no plans?
Search team
or the
has,
Beetle?
the Beatles don't either, if they know it's good for them.
Well, the Beatles will not be performing at the 300. All right, if I can get a motion to adjourn?
So
Oh, I'm sorry, do
Oh.
you have something, Gary?
Oh, just a question, because I'm looking at future meetings. So the BOS meeting with the articles and FinCom is the 21st, that's Thursday?
Yep.
If I get the information.
Okay. And the rest are just,
Otherwise, we'll be canceling it.
Well, you can cancel yours, but we can't
Yeah.
cancel ours.
That's fine. I'm just
Well,
saying.
you don't have to, you can only vote on ones you want to. You don't have to vote on all of them.
I know,
We've
but-
done that in the past.
I know, but.
You haven't always been included. At least we've included you, Karen. This is a last.
Listen, we've
last
done it
minute.
for the last 3 years, but we definitely waited till the last
Right.
possible
There's
second.
different circumstances, and we didn't all wait.
All I'm saying is why isn't the backup ready to go now? It should be all in the Board of Selectmen's hands in that office. And I'm not yelling at
Right,
you.
because-
I'm just saying that it wasn't probably given to the Board of
Right.
Selectmen's office. That's the whole problem we have to fix. That all should be coming with all of the information, so it is just a copy job,
Right.
instead of our town administrator and/or executive secretary trying to chase it all down. It needs to all come in at the same time. It needs to be a full packet. It doesn't need to be the halfway stuff
Agreed,
it's
but
done.
then the people that were supposed to be doing that aren't here.
I
So Gary is getting everything in perfect order. I'm confident that
Mhm.
Thursday night, you're gonna be so impressed, and you'll have that information on your desk Thursday morning. So,
We're trying
hopefully
to
tomorrow. We're working on it, guys. Carol's helping me tomorrow. We gotta get, I know
Thank you.
that.
Well, it's not just me. They're a member
Oh,
of the
understood.
committee that
I don't
have
know.
asked. And I said I
We
would let
haven't
them
seen
know
him
as soon
either.
As
Right.
soon as
So-
I'm done, I said I would let it be known, so I want to make sure it's known, that's all.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I did already.
Oh, do I have a
Wait a
second?
seconds.
Roll call?
Benoit, aye?
Wait a minute.
Nichols, aye? You just gotta wait for Skip?
Clark, aye?
Thank you.